All right. Welcome to our first Tips from the Top call. I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker this evening. Let me just give you a little bit of insight into her career. She has sold $1.2 million worth of kitchen tools. She has recruited 276, which is impressive. But what's even more impressive, and if I had taken the time to do the stats, Karen, and look at everybody, I would feel better saying this, but I can pretty confidently say that with 276 recruited and 215 qualified, you have the highest percentage of qualified recruits in our organization too. Because most people run around the 50 to 60% mark, and you're way higher than that. Way higher. Karen averages in personal sales about $5,000 every single month, which is pretty impressive. And she has young children at home, so that makes it even doubly impressive. But the reason I asked Karen Noble to speak to us tonight is because in 2018, she was the #1 recruiter in our organization. In 2018, now this is calendar year, which is odd for us to think about because we're usually thinking about this in Excellence Award years. But in 2018, she recruited 22 people and qualified 20. So again, right up there with that percentage number. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our #1 recruiter in the Schilling organization, Karen Noble.
Thanks, Robin. This is exciting, getting to do this, and I apologize for my messy bed behind me.
Okay.
As I look in the screen behind me. So Robin asked me to share my top 5 tips. But before I do that, I wanted to just read really quickly to open here. Just an excerpt of a book that I just finished actually today. And the last chapter talks about Angela Duckworth's research at the University of Pennsylvania. And some of you are familiar with her book that she's written called Grit. Grit is the #1 predictor and factor of success. It is not talent, title, wealth, or good looks. It's grit, which is the ability to work hard for a long period of time towards a goal, to persevere, overcome, and keep moving toward that goal in the face of adversity, failure, rejection, and obstacles. Success does not happen overnight. Anything that is worthwhile will take time to build. So, boy, there's a loaded thought right there.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And that certainly rings true for just general life in itself, let alone in much of what we do with our business, especially when a lot of us have big goals, big scary goals, big hairy scary goals. So to have that grit and that determination that, when you fall, it's not a matter of when, it's how long you're going to stay down and when you're going to pick yourself up. So,
yep.
So here's my 5 tips, and then I'll kind of tease each of these out for those of you who like to kind of think ahead and have some thoughts to jot down. The first one is you've got to hold enough shows, and I have a couple key words here in each of these. So enough is the first one. The second one is about building relationships. Obviously, relationships is the key word. My third point is about generating interest, the key word there being generate. My fourth is to be intentional about recruiting. Intentional is the key word. And then for number 5, make recruiting your focus. And focus is the key word in number 5. So first, holding enough shows. It just depends how many people you intend or want to be recruiting. And this isn't a sales-based training. This is exclusively about recruiting. So you have to decide how many people do you really want to reach in terms of adding people to your business and sharing the business opportunity with. For me, I want to have at least 2 new recruits every month. And so for me, that means I've got to schedule 10 shows. And that probably means I'm going to hold about 8. With the ability to do virtual shows, it has been more like 15 scheduled and holding 10. But if you want to add 1 new person a month to your team, then you should probably schedule at least 6. Because then the likelihood is that you'll probably end up holding 4 of those shows, and that will get you in front of people. You're only scheduling 2 parties a month. It's not going to be enough people to be in front of in order to meet those people. The second point to that, I mean, it's kind of pretty simple, but the other part of that I would say in terms of holding your shows is, if your goal is to schedule 6, if your goal is to schedule 20, whatever your number is, do not stop until you have that number. And that's where the grit comes in, the determination comes in. If you decide on February 19th that your 6 parties is enough and you really wanted 20, you've just let yourself down. Now, on February 28th, if you have literally done everything that you possibly could do and you didn't schedule 20, then at least you can hang your hat on the month and say that you did literally everything that you possibly could do. But do not stop until you have the number of shows on your calendar that you want. So that's my number 1. Robin, do you have anything that you want to interject before I move on?
No, go right ahead. You're doing a great job.
Oh, you sound like you're in a tunnel. I don't know if that's just me or if that's everyone else.
Probably just me. I'll be right there.
Okay, but as long as everyone can hear me. Okay. So number 2 is about relationships. And there's several things that you have to keep in mind when you're thinking about relationships. And I see on my lovely screen, I have one of my dear consultants on my team, Tanya. I don't know who else is because that's just who I can see on my screen, but just talked about this the other night about the importance of phone calls. And so many people say, that's not my style. I'm a millennial. It's easier during my lunch break to text, to Facebook, to email. I don't care if it's easy or not. You're not going to build a relationship as easily by a text message, by an email, than you will with the phone. That's just plain and simple. So it doesn't matter how old you are, how much time you have. The phone is going to help you create relationships. And I'm speaking exclusively about relationships right now with your hosts, whether that is a virtual host or it's an in-home host. If you're not connected to them, if they're not connected to you, they're going to be less likely. They're going to be more likely to cancel. If they're connected, they're going to be less likely to cancel. But if you're thinking exclusively just in terms of recruiting, if you don't know what that host's home is like, if you don't know if she works, if he works, if you don't know what their schedule is like, if you don't know the kind of noises that you hear in the background when you're on the phone, you don't know how to offer that host the opportunity. If you're trying to schedule a phone appointment, which is what I do with every single host that I have, and it's if you're not scheduling those phone calls and having, well, I work here, I got to run this place, I got to take this child. Look, you've just gained all of this insight and information into this host's world and created this relationship, because then you're going, oh, I get it. I got to run Ben to soccer, and I got to pick up Paige, and I got to go to the grocery store, and now I got to go to the bank because my credit card, failed. Like, you're sharing all these pieces of information with someone over the phone that you wouldn't otherwise through a text message, because you're just sharing bits of information and you're not relating. So phone calls are super important to build that relationship with your host, because that allows you the window into seeing what can I offer this host in terms of, are they lonely? Do they need the money? Do they have a busy life? Do they need to know how to cook? What are the ways that I'm going to be able to offer the business opportunity to my host because of having that relationship? The second piece to that would be asking questions. And if you're on a text message, you're going to ask questions and you're going to get one-word answers. If you're asking a question over the phone to a host, you're going to go, oh, yes, You're relating to them. They're going, oh, you get it. You're going to be able to have a conversation that's two-way. It's not just information back and forth by text message, one word. The next piece of your relationships is if you are doing a home party, having relationship building opportunities with your guests. So being set up for your party before anybody even gets there. Being like a regular guest and having a glass of wine to chit chat with everybody as they're coming in the door. Oh, your host is busy. I can get the door, and you're greeting someone at the door. You're building that relationship right that quick. The host is getting someone at the door and someone's looking for the trash can. It's right here, oh, hey, I didn't get to meet you yet. So being prepared before everybody arrives at that home party gives you the opportunity to build relationships with the guests and ask questions. How do you know Susie? Have you been to a Pampered Chef party before? What do you love about cooking? What do you hate about cooking? So you're asking these questions and building those relationships with the guests. Thinking about an online party, you're still wanting to build relationships. So right from the very beginning, when you've got day 1, day 2 of your virtual parties and the guests are starting to answer roll call or here's my favorite product or, whatever the first engagement couple post might be, sending them a private message from the very beginning. Hey, so happy you're in this party. My name's Karen. I'm doing the party with Susie. Are you familiar with Pampered Chef? Or do you have anything that you think everybody needs to see? So building a relationship with your guests right from the very beginning of your virtual parties before things have even started. Now you're not salesy. You're just getting acquainted and getting to know people just like you would if you were in somebody's home greeting them in their kitchen or their living room. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of some relationship pieces. Robin, how about anything that I should answer or clarify differently or questions that you might have about that before I move on?
I mean, you did a great job, and you're so spot on with relationships. It's more about them being able to get a glimpse into who you are, whether you're doing a live show or a virtual show. One is important because when you connect with people and you relate to them, there's less of that barrier of being a salesperson versus a customer. And by taking the time to do that, Karen, you're spot on. When I think back to what it was like when we were directors 20 years ago, we didn't have social media. We didn't text. We had to pick up the phone and call. And I think we had better relationships with our team members because of that. So you're spot on, absolutely, and very, very important part of recruiting.
Okay. All right. So number 3 is to generate interest, and the key word there is generate. And the reason that that's important is because you are not going to your home party. You are not starting a virtual party thinking, who's going to be at this party that wants to be a consultant? They're not entering this party. Well, maybe you are. They're not entering the party thinking, I'm going to sign up and be a consultant. They are not driving to their girlfriend's house thinking, I'm going to sign up and be a consultant. They're not even thinking about buying a rock or booking a party. They're probably thinking about, I can't believe I have to go to this party. Or, oh my gosh, another online party. So what we have to do is generate the interest, just like we generate interest in bookings, generate interest in them purchasing products. We have to generate interest in the business opportunity. So it's not enough just to ask people, have you ever thought about doing something like this? If you've not generated interest, they've never thought about doing this before. So it's very important to think about specifically your opening and your closing. And I know everyone has a different approach. This is obviously mine. I look at it like when you go to church. You're really attentive at the beginning of the sermon and you're really attentive at the end of the sermon because you know it's starting and it's ending. So that's when you have people's attention at a home party, is right at the beginning and right at the end. And you can't rely only on that. That's just when I'm thinking about your opening and your closing, your bookends of the most important thing. Everything else that's going to happen in between is going to kind of add into, obviously, what we're talking about here. But your strong opening, definitely you're going to share why you became a consultant, what's so fabulous about what you've achieved or what it is that you're working to achieve. And then, in my opinion, the more important piece of that is, so, if I started this to pay off my college loan, maybe this would be a great job for you because you have a daughter that wants to be in ballet. Or maybe you have a home renovation that you just can't afford to spend money on right now. Or maybe you have a dream vacation that you'd like to travel on. This is the job that could allow you that opportunity to earn that income, to be able to do any of those different types of things that maybe would be perfect for you. We make about $100 to $200 a party. So by doing even just one party a week, you could make an extra $100 to $200 a week to go towards that goal for yourself. Think about if this is something you're interested in, and I'd love to share more information with you at the end of the party. So that's kind of the ending of basically what I would say after I kind of introduce myself as my story. So it's important to say those pieces. And if you caught the kind of the words that I said, is maybe you, it's not about me, it's about them. And that's kind of canvassing the crowd. Who do I have that's sitting in front of me? Do I have 75-year-olds? Do I have 20-year-olds? Do I have a little bit of everything? And you've got to give them the different options about what might be interesting to them, and to share specifically about the money. People don't realize how much money we really can make. And then to not just share, but to invite. If you've heard about the analogy of, somebody tells you they got engaged and they can't wait for their wedding, you are not showing up at their wedding unless you get an invitation. So if all I talk about is how great my job is and I make so much money and it's flexible and I earn all these products, but I never invite you to consider it, you might not necessarily know that this is something that you could do as well. You might not feel the permission for that. The closing is kind of the bookend. And in my opinion, it gives you that opportunity. Anything that you forgot to talk about, whether it's a promotion for, a signing bonus, or there's something really exciting, like we've got conference coming up in a couple months and it's a really awesome time that we gather together and it's a lot of fun. That just kind of gives you a little burst of energy. Or we have new products that are coming out that we're so excited about as consultants selling. So it kind of gives you that last opportunity to seal the deal, if I can say it that way, as far as the closing. But I'll go into it a little bit more. But in your closing, to reaffirm, if this is something that you would like to take a little bit more information home about, I will make sure that I give you some material so you can look it over and we can discuss it later. To me, I like to say it that way because it doesn't feel quite as threatening. I'm definitely having way more of a conversation with them than just, here's a catalog, take it home and call me in the morning. I'm definitely going to say way more than that, but I don't want them to feel threatened by me saying, take the information. Obviously, if someone says, I don't really want to talk with you about it now, I'll say, fine. But my intent is for sure to discuss a little bit more at length. So that's kind of generating the interest. So thoughts, Robin, about that?
And Karen, you hit some really good points there about inviting, about giving them permission to ask you, and making sure that you're not giving them too much information and, doing that verbal vomit that we tend to want to do. But the other thing that I really liked about what you said was that you kind of discuss your business as if they're already part of your team. Think about what, you have, you do, not I have. And I think that could be the biggest key to why you're so successful. It's because you make them see themselves as part of your Pampered Chef family, before they even know they want to be part of your Pampered Chef family. That's awesome.
Okay. So the fourth point, I'm keeping my eye on my time here because I know you said to try to keep us under about half hour. So the fourth point is to be intentional about recruiting. And it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand with making it your focus. But I kind of teased out two different pieces. With intentionality, I have talking about our checkout. And then on the fifth piece, I have making it my focus, with pretty much everything that I do in my parties is totally centered around recruiting. I don't do anything for nothing. Everything serves a purpose. Every single thing that I do at my party serves a purpose. So being intentional about recruiting, and speaking just exclusively about checkout, a few things. This is again a home party. Obviously, you're still doing a checkout process with a virtual party, but if you're at a home party, I think it's imperative that you have a separate space set aside to do a checkout process with every single guest. I was part of the pilot when we started the express party checkout. That is a dream come true. It makes it so much more simplified to be able to actually relate, talking one-on-one with people. I'm not doing any math. I don't have a pen. I literally have my phone. This click, 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 click. So now let me really get down to what I want to talk with you about, kind of a thing. So now I'm still sitting with them. But you have to really be intentional about your checkout. So for me, my host knows before I even get to her home that I need a space to do that. And I know where it is and she knows where it is. And this might seem really silly, but if someone comes to your house and says, oh, by the way, instead of just being here in the family room, I also need to be tucked in a corner someplace to do orders. If you're at my house, I don't have room for that unless I planned it, because I have a very small ranch. So I need to know that ahead of time, because I've either thrown my family or all my crap into another spot of my house. And now you've just really put me on the spot. So you have to ask that of your host ahead of time to say, where are we being for the party and where can I be for checkout? So I'm in a totally separate place to sit and do orders with people, because I'm talking about money and I don't want to be in front of everybody. So that's super important to have that established ahead of time. And then when you get there, you say to your host, and where am I going to be for checkout? Because then you know. And then at the end of the party, when you're doing your close, you're going to tell everyone, look, I need 3 minutes to finish the recipe. You guys are going to be good to go and eat everything. When you're done with your order and you've submitted it through on your phone, I'm going to be in the dining room and I'm going to help you guys one at a time, so I can help to make sure that everything is correct on your order and that you really did want 10 food choppers and that your area code really does start with a 0. Because, there's such a thing as tap, 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 and autofill that's wrong. And that does happen on all those different things. So make sure everyone knows that you need to sit with them and do orders. And then you'll say, whoever has to scoot first, I will do your order first, and then you'll grab the next person, and so forth and so on. And that way we can just make sure that everybody has a chance to get through the orders. And then at your checkout, what you're going to do is you're going to obviously confirm their order, but you're going to make sure that you ask every single person, have you ever thought about doing something like this? Or I talked about the flexibility. Is that something that's interesting to you? Or of any of the things that I shared that I love about my job, are any of those things interesting to you? Or the person that asked you 500 questions during the ticket game. You asked so many questions, it seems like it's something you're interested in. Or the first person who was at the party, you are the girl. You were here first, helping, doing more than the host did. You should be doing this. Or the person who could not shut up and stop talking about everything they have. Oh my gosh, Susie, you have so many things. Why are you not doing this yourself? Or the person who was sitting quiet. I noticed you were just kind of sitting. It looked like you were taking everything in. Is this something you're thinking about? So being, a detective and using what you saw, what you noticed happening in the party as you're talking one-on-one with each person is going to lead you to that deeper relationship to offer to them why it's important to them. So that's kind of the intentionality about recruiting exclusively if we're thinking about checkout at a home party. So.
Karen, I think the other thing that's key to what you're talking about there with being intentional at a party, and whether it's live or virtual, it still goes back to that relationship and that connection that you're making with them, and offering the opportunity in a way that's not threatening. It's more just about, did anything that I say, relate to your world? Is there, is this what's going on in your house? And just, that back and forth conversation, I think it takes the aggressiveness away from recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it more conversational. And I think the other thing that I gleaned from what you shared is that at your full service checkout, or as you're doing your checkout chat, you're not sounding like that waitress at IHOP that says, "Hi, my name's Robin, and I'll be your server today." Because every single person that's sitting in Robin's section hears that exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to do a statistical study to see if the sales or the waiters, the wait staff, their tip level would go up if they didn't say the exact same thing at every table.
Mm-hmm.
So I think by you doing your checkout chat off in a separate room, or virtually doing it one-on-one, you do have that opportunity to connect and to really continue to strengthen that relationship. And that's what this business is all about.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to hear how you're going to tell us about making this your focus, because you already feel really laser focused. Tell us, Karen.
All right. So the last piece, as far as making it your focus, is just two other pieces that I have kind of added in here, as far as the ticket game, as I call it, and your door prize slip. Now, I don't know if you shared how long I've been a consultant, but it's been 19 years. And what I tell my new consultants as I'm training them for their first party, if it's a home party especially, is I do the same exact thing for 19 years. The same exact, not recipe necessarily, but the structure of my party is exactly the same. I do the same intro. I do my recipe. I do my specials. I do the ticket game. I do the door prize slip. So it's exactly the same thing every single party for 19 years. So it's easy, as I trained on this the other night, it's easy to do all these things when you're doing the same exact thing every time. It's like driving to work. You just drive, and then you go, how did I get here? So for me, the ticket game is, and some of you are familiar with this, so I apologize if this is something you've heard a million times, and it's something similar to Stealing Hearts and Y-Bag. The ticket game to me is pretty important the way I do it. And so what I have is just the regular old roll of tickets, and I tell them the last thing we're doing is for a game. Of course, we're playing it for a prize, because there's no point in playing a game if you can't win a prize. And then I tell them you're going to ask questions about one of two things. Questions are only about hosting a party with Pampered Chef, and that will get you one ticket. And I say, so your questions could be like, can I have an online party? What do I get if I have a home party? How many people do I need to have at my home for a party? How do I pick a recipe? Anything like that is a question about hosting a party that gets you one ticket. Or you can ask me anything at all that has to do with what I do for my job as a consultant with Pampered Chef. That gets you two tickets. So something like, how much money do you make? What's the best part of your job? What do you hate about your job? What's one of the best perks of what you do? So I give them those examples. And obviously you're seeing what I'm doing here, because sometimes people don't realize what we're going for. And then I just say, ready, set, go. And it always happens right away, because there's always people who have been to other parties and they know this is what we do at Karen's party. We ask questions. And so there's always someone that will ask. If there's not and there's crickets, then I look at the most talkative person in the room and I say, Susie, I'm so glad that you asked me what's the most amount of money I ever made at a party. And then she goes, yes, I did want to know that. So to me, the important part about answering the ticket game is if they say, how many people do I need to have? How many people do you have to have at a party? So my answer would be, it depends on how far you live away, but I'll come and do a party for 2 people if you live within 10 minutes. If you live further, then I'll still come and do a party for you as long as you've got a nice handful of people. If they ask me, how much money do you make? My answer to that is, when you're a new consultant, you make $100 to $200 a party. And the significance to that, the way that I answer that is, I don't say I make $100. I say, when you are a consultant, you make $100 to $200 a party. What's an extra perk of this job? When you're a consultant, you can earn a free vacation. You could earn jewelry. You could earn a car allowance. So I kind of point everything back as if they're asking me for them. So all of those questions, I'm kind of answering back, not about myself, but about them. So that's the ticket game. And then the next piece that's super important, I pull somebody for a prize and they win a toaster tongs or a batter bowl. That'd be a nice gift. A prep bowl. And then the next thing that I do right after that, which is again about focus, is that I do my door prize slip. Again, intentional for me. I don't hand them out ahead of time. I don't put them in their catalogs. I don't put them on their seats. And this is what I trained the other day for my team is, you're like a teacher. So you're the first grade teacher. You have your pens and your pad and you say, and our last thing is for another prize. I'm going to hand everybody a door prize slip and I'm going to have you fill this in, and Susie Host is going to pull one of you for another prize. And then you hold it up and you say, make sure you put your email on here so I can send you the recipes from tonight, your phone number so I can call you every single day for the next 5 weeks straight. And then, of course, they laugh like Robin did. Kidding. I have children. Don't have time to call you. But if I have a question, I need to. And then if you're interested, and I kind of use this as my last opportunity to talk about bookings, like have a party in March because we'll do fajitas and margaritas and you'll get a Rock 60% off, or whatever it is. But then I really kind of nail home again, like if you really are intrigued and you want to find out a little bit more about doing what I do, whether home parties, virtual, combination, indicate that on here and I can be sure you go home with some information. And then I walk around and I pass it out one at a time to every single person. And then I stand there and I wait for them to fill it in. And the reason that that's important to me is because we just took the time to do that ticket game. They either asked all those questions, heard the answers. Even if they didn't ask questions, they heard all the answers to all the questions. And now they're responding to everything that they just heard on the door prize slip. Now, I'm still asking everybody anything anyway, but if I have a glaring yes, 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 I'm going to ask that person a way different way than if I've got someone who wrote all no's on their paper. I'm going to say, oh my gosh, it seems like you're really interested in this because what you indicated on your paper. So then I wait and I collect who's done with their papers, and then I literally walk around like the school teacher and I collect papers and pens, and then I have the host pull the winner. So that's kind of those 2 pieces that I shared as far as why I picked the word focus for that. So.
That was awesome, Karen. Thank you.
A lot of details.
Yeah, well, but you know what? Everything that you said makes so much sense. And it really goes back to just the very basics of building a relationship and having that connection with people again. And that's so true. And again, that applies to live shows or virtual shows.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you're watching this video live and you have a question, please put it in the chat box. And I will help Karen monitor that and ask questions. So if there's anything you want to know, please type it into the chat box. If you're new to Zoom, if you just kind of move your cursor around, you'll see a window pop up at the bottom and it says chat, and you can just put your question right in there. I hear fingers ticking. I know this is an awkward way to ask questions and get them answered, but it's easier for us to keep the recording clean, so we can do this. All right, first question is from Carolyn. How do you do the checkout in a virtual party?
So what I do for a virtual party is as soon as somebody places an order, I post right, and I do my virtual parties as groups. So I just post, Susie, thanks for your order. I will be in touch to confirm your order. So they know that I will be contacting them. And then I actually, if I haven't had them respond to my Facebook message, because again, if we're not friends, it goes to their spam, they might not see it. If they had responded initially to my hey, thanks for being a part of the party, I'll message them through Facebook Messenger. If not, I text them. And then I try to have just a dialogue, either by Facebook Messenger or by text message. I don't normally call them because I figure at that point there's just the fact that it's virtual, but I'm still trying to connect with them, and I'll engage specifically about the way that they were in the party, or about maybe something they ordered or a question or something along those lines. So very similar, but most of that is done instead of by phone, through either text message or Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, it's a little bit different when it's a virtual party and you're trying to do that. The next question is, how many virtual parties do you do a month?
That, it really varies. It could be as few as 2, or it could be as many as 10. Right now, it really just depends on how many I'm trying to fill in with home parties. So it really varies.
Okay. And when you're doing virtual parties, how do you recruit? How do you create that interest in there?
It's a little bit obviously different with the virtual parties. So for me, in recruiting on a virtual party, it's way more about connecting one-on-one with people. So that's why I think it's really important to early on send those messages to establish a friendship with them through Messenger, because if I see that they're really engaged in the party, I'm going to start commenting to them through Facebook Messenger, Susie, you are all over the place in this party and rocking this. You should be doing this. Or if they have so much stoneware, I'm going to use that as my approach. Like you love all of your stoneware, you love all your products. Or if they are the gift queen, I am telling them how much fun they are, and they definitely need to be on my team because my team is fun. So it's more about not necessarily as much generating the interest as it is about relating to them and kind of picking what they have to offer Pampered Chef.
Okay. What type of prize do you give at the end?
In a home party for the ticket game or the door prize, I'm assuming is what that question is about. I normally do toaster tongs or a mini serving spatula, or I love to buy the prep bowl set and I give one prep bowl away. So something like that.
Okay. Tammy asked a question about where do you find people? I'm assuming she means hosts. She went on then to ask about your virtual party being in a group or an event, and you did say you do groups, so.
Yes, I do mine as a group.
Do you get more recruits from home parties or virtual parties?
I get more through home parties, but I would say I probably do more home parties than virtual parties.
Okay, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
All right, Janelle wants to know, what tips do you have for following up with people who at one time expressed interest in the business, but have yet to follow through with signing up?
So I guess what I try to do is I try to keep the ball in my court with someone that doesn't actually commit to signing. So if it's, I typically try to turn them signing right at their show, or if they're at someone else's show, or if they're coming to a meeting, I try to have an end plan. And if I can't come to the meeting or I'm not having a party, I try to keep the ball in my court, and I try to say, if this was something that you were still considering, when would you think that you would be interested? And so then I would give them, are you thinking a month from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 months from now, and I try to get kind of a time frame, and then I ask permission, is it okay if I call you back? I always want to give myself permission to contact them again, because then when I do, I'm doing what I said I was going to do. I'm not harassing them. And if they don't want me to, then they'll say, I'll call you. And at that point, then maybe I'm going to revisit them in a couple months to invite them to come to a meeting or a look and learn event online, or hopefully I'll see them at someone else's party. So I try to always keep something, nailed down as far as a time frame. Hopefully I answered that the way she was looking for.
Well, I think so. And Janelle, if that didn't answer your question, just ask a clarifying question and we'll come back to that again. How many home parties are you doing every month, Karen?
I would say 8.
Okay. And is it your goal to do 10 a month, or is it 8 a month? I mean, where do you like to land?
I want to hold at least 8. So I normally schedule 10 home parties. And then I'm going to add in however many virtual parties as I can in there.
Okay. All right. Can you talk about your onboarding process? What do you do with those new recruits once you sign them? How do you get them up and running?
It's interesting. I've done the same thing for 19 years. I just didn't have a name for it. And so now I love the Strong Start is exactly what I was doing. It just was my own not developed plan. So I love what, the Strong Start, Love Carpenter and Becky Ishii, and I can't remember who the third person is that came up with that plan. I thought there was 3, but I live, breathe, and die by that very, very strictly with my new consultants. So scheduled everything, follow up with emails, and that gives you the exact plan. So if you print it and read it verbatim and do exactly what it tells you, that's all you need. So
how much do you allow them to work on their own, or do you interface with them through all of the steps of Strong Start?
I don't, like, as far as like their trainings and things that they're taking online from PC University, is that what you mean? Stuff like that?
Yeah.
I'm really just saying, take it, do it. Did you? Everything else is more just, okay, here, you need to set up these shows because you've got 30 days, 90 days. Next call is about host coaching and fast track. Next call is about, here's the outline of your party if it's a home party, or here's the outline of your virtual party. And then the next call is a follow-up on who, what, when, where, how. So that part is pretty strict. I don't do parties for consultants and give them to them. If you're signing, you're doing your own party. I don't work for free. So even virtuals, I don't do their virtuals for them. Here's the script. You can copy and paste exactly everything and do it in your parties. So I'm different than some people with that, but I can't work for free.
How do you manage all of this in your daily calendar? Like, let's just say you sign 3 people the first week of February and 4 the third week of February. How are you managing that and keeping all of that stuff in place?
So I have the Strong Start is printed, and so I have that in a 3-ring notebook. And then literally what you do for each new consultant is you print. There's a worksheet, for lack of a better word, that I have for Michelle, for Susie, for Beth. And then that just moves in between each call 1, and her paper just gets moved, or his paper just gets moved. And then I am a paper calendar person. I am not a Google Calendar. So I had 2 of those calls today. So literally on my paper calendar, which is right here on my desk, I have Judy that I talked to at 1, and I have Michelle that I talked to at 7. And then when I before I hung up the phone with both of those 2 ladies, we scheduled the next phone call, which is now written in my calendar.
Okay.
So then there's no guesswork. It's all right there. And then when I call them the next phone call, I open up the worksheet and I just read everything that's right in there.
Check sheet that you were talking about, the worksheet where you're making notes, is that something that comes with the Strong Start, New Consultant Strong Start, or is that something you created?
It was something that I created and married it with, actually, I think that's something that Tammy Cruz did a couple years ago. So I kind of took something I found from her and something that I was already using and kind of married the two together.
Okay, would you be willing to share that document with me and then I can share it with everybody else?
No.
Okay,
I'm just kidding.
I know you are. Look at her, she's going to write it down.
I am tomorrow. I'll email to you.
Send Robin. And while you're doing that, Karen, the New Consultant Strong Start, someone is asking exactly where you find that on Consultants Corner. Yeah.
I think it's under Leader Resources. I mean, I can upload that too, but I think even if you just typed in on Consultants Corner Strong Start, I believe it comes up. But I think it's under the Leader Resources.
And that's available to any consultant, right? It's not just available to directors and above.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not sure either. So whoever asked that question, I will, oh, that was Carolyn. Carolyn, I'll check into that and I'll let you know. All right, any other questions? So one thing that I will kind of wrap this up, you know, if you're new to recruiting, if you're struggling with that, if you're struggling with bookings, all of this goes back to the very first thing that Karen talked about, and that's the relationships. People are bombarded with all kinds of information from a million different directions. So I think it may be overwhelming if you're just going on your social media and, you know, trying to get people to book with you or to recruit with you. What you need to do is show them value in the relationship with you, and then you go in for the ask. You don't go there first. You build that relationship. You forge the things that you are like in common with them, so that you can move forward and have a relationship and ask that question. It's a really interesting case in point. I just did it today. One of my friends was looking for leggings for her daughter, and I happened to be scrolling through the Facebook Marketplace and I found some. So I connected with this lady. We talked about the leggings, what colors, what sizes, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm so shocked that LuLaRoe, was so popular and now it's not anymore and that they're going out of business. And she said, oh, they're still in business. But the short story here is that I said to her, well, what are you doing for work now? Since you're not selling LuLaRoe, what are you doing for work? And I ended up, she is now friend requesting me. I've added her to my Facebook community, all because of a simple conversation and the relationship that we built. And I think that's the part that we seem to forget in life and in social media. We want to get things done quickly and the easiest way, and we have to take the time and build relationships. So thank you, Karen. This was incredible.
You're welcome.
All hail the number one recruiter.
Everybody can do it.
You know what? They can now, Karen, because you just simplified it so well with those 5 easy steps. So thank you. This was recorded tonight. This will be made available to all of your leaders, so they will be able to post it in all of your Facebook groups. So how about joining me in a round of applause for Karen? We can't give her a standing ovation, but we can give her a round of applause.
Woohoo, Karen.
Thank you so much, everybody.